Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem. This is a postmortem of my Blitz game number 247. I was black here and I played d5 in response to e4, or the center counter. And my opponent played the very unusual move e5. So most common is e takes, and it's probably a good move here. e5 just doesn't give white quite as much of an opening advantage as he usually enjoys. And the best reply here is probably c5, although it looks like e6 is a good move. But thinking about it after the game, it looks like c5 is a great idea because puts pressure immediately on this d4 square, makes it hard to support this advanced e5 pawn, and that can come under attack later. So if you see what happens in the game, I played knight c6 with a similar idea to attack this pawn, but without having played the c5 move. And after d4, let's look at the notation tab. Okay, bishop f5, we actually sort of transposed back into a known opening. Bishop f5, and then he played bishop b5, so we're out of the opening book there. It starts to look like a French defense, although I have managed to get my bishop outside the pawn chain. But the point is, with the French defense and also with the Caro-Kann, which is like a French defense in a way, where you do get the bishop outside the pawn chain, one of the main ideas is to play this move c5 to immediately put pressure on the center. And I've got my knight here blocking the way. So the way I played was probably not the best. And the engine gives white a slight opening advantage, but not with this move bishop b5. After he takes my knight, this actually solves a lot of my problems, because now I get a c-pawn, which I can push ahead and undermine the center, and things are pretty much even. I've already equalized, which is pretty early in the game. So I continue with knight e2. No, I'm sorry, it's white's move. He continues the knight e2. I play c5, and he plays c3, defending the center. And I just continue developing with knight e7. It looks like the engine prefers an immediate exchange on d4. I didn't want him taking back. I guess after I take, yeah, he's going to... See, I didn't want him taking back with a knight, and I would have to move my bishop again. But the engine thinks that line is okay. Knight e7, d takes c5. Or c takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop g6. Yeah, that's one of the engine lines. Okay, I played the other line. I played knight e7. And he castles instead of taking. I'm not worried about him capturing this pawn, although maybe I should be. If he takes, let's take a look at this, and I play knight here, he can try and hold on to the pawn with the move b4. Oh, and then I grab this pawn. Okay, so that's the point. Knight to g6 here is a double attack. It attacks this pawn, and the bishop attacks that pawn, and he can't hold on to both of them. So knight e7 was a safe move. It's funny, I did not actually think about this line during the game. He just castled here, so I didn't have to discover that. And I play knight c6, opens up the line for the bishop to defend this pawn, and also puts more pressure on the center, which is my idea. And the engine is starting to like black's position here. So I think white basically played a faulty strategy, and I managed to keep some advantage through most of the game. So after bishop here, he's actually threatening to take the pawn, so I went ahead and exchanged. And then just continued developing with bishop e7. Was there a more dramatic move here? Rook b8 was maybe a better way to continue developing, immediately putting pressure on this undefended pawn here. Okay, so bishop e7 was played, and he played a3. And now I went, again, rook b8 is a good idea here. I go f6, going for this thematic undermining of the center. And my opponent plays f4, supporting the center. I castle. And now knight d2. So yeah, once again, the engine sort of likes black's position here. I exchange first, fe, and then play bishop to g5. I was wondering about this. Okay, yeah. So bishop g5 gives up a lot of my advantage. This is my good bishop, and it's kind of strange that I'm trading it off, but at the same time I didn't see a good way to find a square for this knight on c6, and I really want to get it out of the way so I can think about playing the move c5. What does the engine suggest? The engine suggests, once again, rook b8, rook c1, queen d7, queen a4, just leaving the knight there, and rook b6 and defending it. This position doesn't really appeal to me, honestly. I don't think I would play that way. Now I think in this position you've got to find a home for this knight. It may be better to move the knight somewhere else than e7 rather than moving the bishop. But anyway, this is the plan I came up with, was moving this bishop out here, and he should probably take. Oh, queen b3 is given as a move here too, but he retreated the bishop to f2, and now I have the square knight e7, and once again rook b8 was a move. My opponent played rook c1, and finally I get the idea of rook b8. So it's one of those rules, putting your rooks on open files is often a good idea. So he played b4. This does open up a square here, but it also introduces the idea of undermining his pawns immediately with a5. Now I was thinking about a5 here, and I delayed it a move. I don't play it till the next move, because right now a5 is not defended. So if he takes rook b2, I guess I just ignore it and invade. These pawns are weak, so it's not too much to worry about, and I can get in the move c5 at any time. So just continuing with rook to b2. Yeah, putting pressure on this knight. It's already under attack once, so the knight has to move. Knight to f3, and now bishop takes c1. Ah, so that would have won the exchange. Okay, nice tactic. So there's this pin on the knight. If I can put enough pressure on the knight to force it to move, then that should be winning. Now what if he tried to defend it with the move like bishop there? Then I can play bishop to d3, pinning the other knight. So my pieces are just kind of invading and tying him up in knots. Okay. An interesting way to play. Let's see. It would continue. Rook takes, queen takes, rook c7, where seems like white has just won a pawn, but I have the move bishop to e3 check. King h1. Bishop takes d2. Queen takes. Bishop takes d2. Bishop takes. And rook takes d2. That's kind of nice. Okay, that tactic is pretty deep. The idea here is if queen takes rook, then this queen comes in here with checkmate. So at the end, the knight really is hanging after all of that. But that's a lot to see. You have to calculate pretty deep to notice that at the end of all that, you have a mate threatened. Okay, and a very clever check in the middle. So that is why a5 is justified here. So playing more simply, I just played c6 so I can play a5 and then take back with the queen. He played rook c3, and I went ahead with my plan to play a5. And he just ignored it. He went knight f3, developing his pieces. So I take here, and this, cancel that. Oh, I didn't take. Probably should have taken. What did I play here? I played bishop to h6. Oh yeah, he's attacking my my bishop with this knight f3 move. So I guess if I take the pawn, it's attacking his rook, so I don't have to move the bishop first. I could take the pawn first. But anyway, he plays the move rook to b3, and now I take. And he takes back. So we get the same kind of position we would have gotten anyway, I think. And now I have an isolated pawn, which is a target. So queen b6. I also want to put some pressure on the other pawn in the center. He's basically got two weaknesses here. I want to try and pressure both of them. And if I can get in the move c5, I will play it. But right now it doesn't look possible. Okay, so he continues with knight c3. And I go rook a8. He's opened up the a file here, so I'm trying to get something going over there. Queen e2. And bishop g4. So you see I'm keeping the advantage all through this, and actually this trade helps me. So this was a mistake, this h3 move. He probably needed to play something else. When I take the knight, he has to take back with a pawn because my rook on the open f file prevents him from taking with the queen. So he should not provoke this exchange. He should play something else. b5 is recommended, or king h1. Okay, I guess he can't really stop me from taking and disordering his king side, but he doesn't need to hurry the process. So after I take, this is looking pretty good for me. There's a lot of weaknesses around his king, and so I start to have some attacking ideas. I go bishop f4. Looks like the engine really likes knight f5. That's also a move I was thinking about, because knight f5, in addition to threatening to come into this towards the king, also is threatening the pawn on d4. Although to take it would put it into this pin, so I'm not sure if that's really a great idea to take. Anyway, I didn't want to move the knight there first. I wanted to make sure there's room for the rook and the bishop to get into the game. So I started with bishop f4. Still an okay move. King g2, and now rook f5. Okay, still keeping an advantage. Rook g1, and then delivering this check. Okay, that's recommended. King to h1. And now I saw, well, if I exchange everything off, I can actually get this rook onto the back rank, and that's often a really good thing to do. So so I went for this. Take here. He took with the bishop, and then now I went to rook a1, so getting the rook onto the 8th rank. And now I've got pretty much all of my pieces involved in the game except for this knight, and so I'm going to try and activate that next. My opponent goes queen d3, and I went knight to f5 here, but technically, oh, knight f5 is a good move. Okay, I was going to say, it looks like bishop takes e5 is also a very strong move. That's pretty interesting. I did not think about bishop takes e5, but the point is, this pawn is pinned. The queen would take the bishop, and that would be checkmate because of the rook having pinned the bishop. This pawn can't move on d4, so I can just take e5. That's just hanging. Okay, I missed that. But knight f5 is a strong move too, bringing new force into the attack and one of the top choices. So he goes knight e2. And now, yeah, somewhere around here I let the advantage slip away. It looks like rook a2 is the best follow-up. So let's examine the computer line here. There's also bishop e3, which I played, still keeping a strong advantage. So, well, let's look at the rook a2 idea first. Rook a2 unpins the bishop. Bishop comes to f2, and then rook to d2, harassing the queen. So that's a pretty smart idea. And where does the queen go? He plays knight takes f4, and rook takes queen is the engine's recommendation as to best play for white. So that's basically winning the queen. If the queen moves, say to b1, then what have I got? Rook takes e2. Yeah, I just start taking his pieces. Okay, so starting with rook a2, that's a very strong sequence. I played the second best move here, bishop e3, taking advantage of this pin. And he defends with rook to b1. So right here, what's the best move? Once again, rook a2 is the best way to keep the pressure up. Probably with the same idea of coming here and threatening the queen and winning the rook. I mean, winning the knight. But instead I took, okay, still with an advantage. Queen takes. And now what's the move? Bishop takes. Okay, I played that. Queen takes. Because somewhere along here it seemed like I lost the advantage. Queen takes b4. I played that. Queen to g5, where he starts trying to go for some counterplay. And here, okay, I saw that I could play queen e1 check and win the knight. Or, no, it doesn't win the knight, but here, I really thought about this move, queen e1 check, and I didn't see the winning follow-up. So let's check this out. Queen e1 check. If the king moves, I'm going to just grab the knight. And I believe in this case, yeah, the king can come here, and the knight can block the next check from the square e7. So check, king f7, check, knight e7, and then there's no more checks. So I think I'm okay as far as not getting perpetual. So if the king moves, I just win the knight. The queen blocks, once again I win the knight. So knight g1 is pretty much the only move. And then knight takes d4 is a suggestion. Okay. This was a little bit too risky, I thought, because, well, I thought I might get into a perpetual, but it looks like I escaped. So what if he continues to check? king to g6. Oh, the knight is defending this pawn. That's nice. So the queen can't take here with check, and now I'm threatening here. I'm also threatening to take here and win the knight. So what the engine says h4 and then queen takes e5. Okay, even more convincing. So this would be the best way to play, and I would have not gotten into so much time trouble. So instead, I wasn't sure that was working, so I came back with queen b6 to stop this queen e1 idea. He gets his king out of its corner, tries to move it to a square where it's got a little more flexibility. I play h6, so still keeping an advantage. Queen g6. And now knight h4 check. Ooh, I missed this. That would end the game. Okay. I played knight takes d4. I finally grabbed the pawn. He goes knight takes d4. And I go queen takes d4. Because I figured by now that this check was not going to lead to a perpetual. But I was wrong here. I was wrong because of this check. He played queen takes e6 check. Yeah, I totally missed this idea. Now the king runs somewhere. I went to h8, and now he's got a perpetual going between c8 and f5 there. He can just have a perpetual, so it's a draw at this point. But he didn't play that. He played queen e8 check. I go here, and then he takes a pawn. So I grab a pawn, and now I have a slight advantage. But it's a tricky situation with just queens and pawns. I have one extra pawn, but there's all these checks you have to worry about. Okay, he played h4. I went d4, just pushing my pawn. He went queen c2, check. I get out of check. And then he went queen e4, offering this trade. And while I was thinking about it, I ran out of time. But actually, it's winning to take the trade. It's just one of those rules that you should always, before going into a king and pawn endgame, you should always calculate out if you're winning or not, because it's one of those things you can calculate. And so you have sort of an obligation to do it. But I guess I should amend the rule and say, unless you're going to run out of time, in which case you should just play the first move that comes into your head. Okay, so let's see how this wins. The way you calculate it, queen takes, pawn takes, and then the king marches in. His king marches in. My king steps forward. I guess he can't get in to attack my pawn. So that's the key point. Let's look at this. I step forward, he steps forward. I step forward, he comes forward. But he can't attack my pawn, so I can go all the way to here. I can't defend my pawn. But he can't attack it, so it's kind of a stalemate here. If he ever pushes his pawn forward, then I'll be able to go to this square. If he pushes his pawn forward, I'll be able to go to d5 and defend my pawn, and then march around and win this way. So the engine gives g5 here as the quickest winning line. So after g5, takes, king takes, and then I step forward, and now I'm going to win because my king is in position. He can't get around in front of the pawn in time. Okay, so that's cool. Let's back up to the end of the game. So right here, I was trying to calculate that out if I had a winning endgame. Because if it's not winning, then I could keep the queen on and try to win with my extra pawn in some other way. But if there's a winning king and pawn endgame, then the simplest way to win is just to trade into it. But instead, while thinking, I lost on time. So that's how it ended. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.